everyone, and welcome back to Ghouls Night In. This is a creepy chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark.
And I'm Midge Munster.
And what are we talking about today, Midge?
Well, Penny, we are going to have a very interesting conversation between the two of us today.
Ooh.
For those of you who may not know this, Penny and I share differing beliefs about this topic, which is the existence or lack thereof of ghosts.
Ooh. Very spooky.
So, of course, a ghost. What is a ghost? It's, in lore, of course, it's the idea that a soul or the spirit of a dead person can return to the earth and communicate with the living in one way or another. There are a bajillion different ways that can take presence. I mean, people have either, seen spectral shapes that actually look human, orbs in photographs, cold spot in a room, a rogue smell, sounds, moving objects. I mean, there's 100 different ways that people believe that they have been communicated with by spirits. And I myself am a believer in ghosts. Actually, I read a study that in 2019 they did a large scale survey that 46% of Americans truly believe that ghosts are real.
I did see that survey, and I I was surprised that it was so high.
I actually was too. And there's a lot of interesting kind of breakdowns about which, I mean, who's to say? But as far as uh, people who, err towards career fields of science and mathematics and things like that, of course, are less inclined to believe, whereas those in like art paths and things like that were found to be more likely to think they either had been in contact with spirits in the past or were open to the idea that they might be. But yeah, it was a lot higher number than I was expecting. Um, what say you, Penny? Are you a firm no-go on ghosts, or are you waiting to be proven wrong?
Um, I'm a pretty firm no-go on ghosts. I would say that I am at the least I do not believe that there has been any compelling evidence
Okay.
that there are ghosts. So if there were to be some kind of spiritual energy, I would say that it isn't something that anyone has detected thus far.
And I think like research pretty much confirms that. I mean that there really, I mean, if you look for science on it, there is really truly no science that confirms it in any which way. But I think that's what I find fascinating about it. It's like, okay, then what is it? Because I am not only a firm believer, but I also am a person who believes I have had encounters with spirits. But we'll get into that later. um, in the science aspect, I do find interesting. Of course, they've done a lot of research on what phenomenons could be like happening in the brain that create said ghosts. And something I find fascinating, which I'm going to ask you if you've ever experienced this, because I have not, is sleep paralysis,
Oh, yeah, I think I have a little bit.
but never with any form of like hallucinations involved.
Like I would say like I've had experiences where like I felt like I was seeing someone like at the foot of my bed, but I feel like that is just, kind of a product of being half asleep, half awake,
Right.
and like kind of like your mind still chugging away. I guess I would say I basically believe like that the human brain is just a really bonkers place and that it tries really hard to like make coherent explanations for the things it takes in, and sometimes it does
Mm.
not do a good job of that.
That's fair. I definitely I've actually, like I said, I've never experienced sleep paralysis. One of my best friends actually just, I want to say like a week ago, um she's had it multiple times in the physical sense, but she's
Mhm.
never experienced anything like with seeing anything while she's experiencing it. And just like about a week ago she experienced it, and she saw like a and she, I mean, told me like it was clear as day, like it was happening IRL in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, like a 9 foot old woman floating above her bed and just like getting closer and closer to her face. And she said she kept trying to like scream or do anything and she
Mm-hmm.
couldn't.
Ooh.
I was like, oh, I would never, I would never recover.
Yeah, that's pretty spooky.
And I've read some like interesting things about how apparently, I mean, I'm not positive about this fact, but that like the human brain basically can't create something from nothing. Like it has to have kind of a reference to try to piece parts together. So I think that's kind of too something I find fascinating. Like, okay, if we're seeing these spooky things, what, I mean, of course we see movies and things, but like what in our past, what has the human brain like witnessed, or what stories have been told that have gotten us to where we are? I just,
Yeah.
the ghosts fascinate me. It really does. um but yeah, so obviously like lots of people who do believe in them have tried to find ways to communicate with the spirit world. Obviously we did a whole episode about Ouija boards,
We did.
which is one of the probably most common, I think, like household ways that a lot of people have come in contact with. But there are lots of different ways that people try to communicate with spirits, including like dowsing rods, which I've always thought are really interesting, and those I find kind of silly because I'm like, you're definitely like, your brain is definitely
Yeah.
influencing those. I think. You brought up some kind of scientific thing during the Ouija board episode about like how your brain makes like minute.
Oh yeah, the idiomotor effect.
Yes, yeah, and I think that
Yeah.
with dowsing rods is absolutely the
Mhm.
case. But something I do find creepy and interesting are spirit boxes. The like electric
Oh yeah.
signal ones
Mhm.
that, and I know that they're like, I think again like the brain maybe hears sometimes what it wants to hear, but I've watched so many like ghost shows. Actually, I watched this one gal who stayed over the night at the Lizzie Borden house, which has
Mhm.
been turned into a bed and breakfast for
Yeah.
some insane reason. um and they were in the room where the bedroom where the murder happened, and using a spirit box, and like clear as day they ask who, because they were basically trying to prove that Lizzie was not actually the person who committed the murders. um and like this spirit box clear as day yells in a woman's voice, it was John, which was like the brother of Lizzie Borden's mom, who was in town that weekend. And
Mm.
when I tell you I think about that, uh, oh yeah, I don't know. I think those are very interesting, and with the kind of concept that spirits are made up of kind of these energy currents, that makes the most sense to me of like a way to possibly communicate. Have you seen the video of the gal? There's like this TikTok that has been going around of this woman who goes to grave sites with a spirit box and tries to draw the person who is deceased at their gravesite by communicating with them, like asking them questions about what they look like.
I have not seen that.
It's very cool and interesting, I think. um, but yeah, I have not used a spirit box. I would really like to. I think that, like I said, I think that to me makes the most sense. Um, but I tried for a really long time. I worked in a historic theater, which I think you know,
Yes.
that was built in 1900, and it has its own ghost stories, quite a few of them. And I really tried to convince my old boss to let me lead a ghost hunting tour in there because I think theaters are one of the only places I would like go ghost hunting and not be too freaked out.
Oh yeah, they're probably pretty chill. I was just gonna say, one of the historic venues, downtown in Milwaukee did ghost tours, and like little ghost hunting things.
Did you
I
go on one?
I was considering going. This was during COVID time, so I just wasn't
Ah,
really comfortable going out in a group at that point.
that's
Um,
fair.
that was pre vaccines.
Sure, that's
Yeah,
fair.
but I would be interested. I think like I'd be interested in attending like kind of like a larger group event. I think I mentioned on a previous podcast that like I wouldn't want to go on like a small like very like personal ghost hunting expedition just because I
Hmm.
feel like I'd be kind of a Debbie Downer and be like, no, I don't think so. But if it was something like a theater tour that had like a little bit more of a sense of like entertainment value to it,
Sure.
I wouldn't mind experiencing it.
What is your stance on as far as like haunted places? I mean, like for example, I think that anywhere where a major like event has occurred, I definitely think that you can walk into a space and feel energy of like negative things that have happened in a house or um in places where like I feel like if I went to like Pompeii, I would be able
Yeah.
to feel it kind of thing. What's your stance on the like negative energy staying in a place?
Yeah, that isn't really something that I've experienced, but like I definitely do feel like I've experienced when I like know the story of a place. Like I
Mm,
think that there is definitely like an emotional weight to, things like that. And that,
sure.
if you have gone like when you go to a cemetery, you definitely like usually feel something, but it's
Yeah.
um I would say that I feel that it's more tied to kind of like the personal experiences and emotions that you're bringing to the place rather than something that's like intrinsic in the space. But I know a
Hmm.
lot of people do experience feeling bad vibes and things like that. So
bad bad vibes only.
bad vibes only.
uh I that Speaking of just haunted places, have you watched many like ghost hunting shows?
Bits and bobs. I do watch BuzzFeed Unsolved, and I've seen like on TV like bits of like ghost hunters or ghost adventures or whatever they're called, but I don't like dedicatedly watch them.
Oh, let me tell you, Penny, about the pure joy that I experience. And I even like, even as somebody who believes in some aspect of the paranormal, ghost hunting shows are the stupidest thing on the entire planet, and I love them so, so much. Uh, and so then it is kind of like a hard look at yourself, like, because I see
Yeah.
these people, like, obviously so clearly influencing each other with their, like, heightened, did you hear that? Did
Mhm.
like so then I look back on times when I have felt like I experienced something and I'm like, oh, is this like if somebody was filming this with a night vision camera, is this how I looked in that scenario? Yeah, Ghost Adventures. If we have any listeners who are fans of Ghost Adventures, holla at your girl. Because I would love to chat with you about some of the ridiculousness that happens on that show. So I would love if you'll indulge me to share my personal ghost story.
Ooh, yes, please do tell.
The one I have, like I said, I have lots of different times where I feel like maybe something has happened. But this is the one time in my life that I cannot explain what happened, and I only fully believe it because somebody else experienced it at the same time. So, I went to Scotland in, I think, 2015, I want to say. And I was living over there for the summer to perform in a show, which was awesome, by the way. If you haven't had the chance to go to Scotland, it is probably my favorite place in Europe.
Oh,
So
I'd love to
cool.
go.
It's Europe is just so cool. The juxtaposition of like the deep, deep history with like the modern, life
Yeah.
going on today is so beautiful and fascinating. But we decided, my friend Sarah and I decided to go on a ghost tour. And of course, there's, the expectation of some kind of haunting or entertainment value in
Mhm.
that. But we didn't really know what we were signing up for. Our tour guide, his name was Darren, and
Oh.
he wore a lot of eyeliner, and it was very exciting. But we ended up getting taken like several different places. But the end of the tour like was in this. You go like under the streets of Scotland,
Mhm.
which is of Edinburgh specifically, which was really crazy cool and fascinating. First off, um, but there's like another city under Edinburgh. Like there are hallways and like streets
Ooh.
and rooms, and it's very, very haunting to begin with. So we get taken into this one room, and Doran asks that we all like stand kind of in a circle around the like outskirts of the room. And there's quite a few of us. I want to say maybe 25 to 30 people. And Doran is in the middle of the circle, kind of talking to us about the history of this place. And I guess during the kind of the plague era of Europe, these tunnels were part of like a street cleaning effort to get the poop out, quite
Yeah.
literally, and like and try to get rid of bacteria and the plague. So people were put under these streets and these rooms and things, and they set fire on the street to like burn up waste that was being dumped out of windows and things. um, but people maybe didn't have the most education at the time about how things were working. And so there were people in these stone rooms under stone streets, and they like cooked alive basically in these like
Ooh.
stone oven rooms under the streets of Edinburgh. And while he is telling us about this, my friend Sarah and I are standing close to one another, but not touching by any means. I'd say there's, 2 to 3 feet of space between us. We're kind of in this one corner of the room. And at the same moment, her and I like both jump like 5 feet in the air and go like, uh, and again, I only believe this because we had the exact same experience that we both felt someone like come up behind us and tug on our jackets. like
Ooh.
like pull on the like base by your waist and kind of go like tug tug tug. uh and at this point our host hasn't like said anything to us about anything in this way particularly, and so her and I both do a little jump and holler, and our host was like, oh, like what happened, are you good?
Yeah.
And we're both like at the same time kind of stammering like, oh, we thought we felt somebody pulling a little bit. And he's like, oh yeah, that's like, I don't remember what he's like, that's like Gwendolyn, like I don't remember what he called her. And we're like, what? He's like, oh yeah, there's a little girl that people say all the time hangs out in that corner and will like pull on women's skirts and things looking for her mom.
Oh.
And when I tell you that I almost shit my pants, Penny.
I bet. Jeez.
Oh, so that is the one time to this day that I believe fully I was like actually touched by a ghost. I I don't know that I believe in ghosts in the traditional like, like ooh, like
Yeah.
spectral human being sense. I've been watching Haunting of Hill House, which is a big deal for me because if you know that I am a giant freaking scaredy cat and I don't watch scary things.
Yeah. How scary is that? Because I didn't watch it because I was scared it would be too scary.
Yeah, It's not, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not good. I screamed out loud thrice in the first 2 episodes, and I've never screamed out loud watching something before.
Oh dear.
Really excellent jump scares, but I will say overall, I think once they kind of start explaining what's happening, it
Yeah.
gets less scary because it's more. So this ties into what I was going to say.
I was gonna say
Um,
side break on a Hill House review.
well,
Now back to the episode.
it's about ghosts. It's important. Um, but Steve, one of the main characters, has a quote that like opens the show, and it's like a ghost can be many things, and then he like, he's like, it can be grief or a memory, and that I think is kind of more what I subscribe to.
Mm-hmm.
That like the I think of a feeling or like an energy can stay in a place, and those are more the types of things that I think I've experienced. Is like, I mean, I consider myself to be an empath, and I've definitely feel like I've walked into spaces and felt things
Yeah.
that I can't explain what I'm feeling, and it's without context. um but I'll tell you what, that Scotland ghost, she grabbed me.
That's very spooky. I was gonna say I am, although I don't believe in ghosts, I am also fully capable of freaking myself out in the moment.
Oh yeah.
So like I would still be scared if I went on. I was gonna say I know that um not to bring BuzzFeed up again, but like Shane is infamous for being just like completely like deadpan in the
Skeptical,
face
right?
of anything spooky, and like I still creep myself out and I'm
Oh
definitely
yeah.
still jumpy about things, even if in retrospect I'd be like, oh okay, maybe it was this, and I don't know that I really believe that, it was ghost fingers or anything.
Ghost fingers. I wish that I was a person. I wish I was more like you in that sense, because I do wish that I could like explain things away better. I think I'm a little too fantastical, and so, if I wake up and see a dude standing at the end of my bed, I'm like, "Yep, that makes sense." Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Couldn't have been a trick of the light. Couldn't have been a shadow. It, Ghost for sure.
Ghosts. I'm trying to think if I have any good
I was gonna
stories.
say, I know you don't have any ghost stories to tell, so.
Well, I did go through a period when I was in elementary school where my friends and I all told each other that we saw ghosts.
Oh, like,
And
was it the same ghost, or were you like making up your own ghost stories?
like our own ghost stories. Like I'd be like, "Oh, well, I was in my basement and I saw this ghost doing this." And someone else would be like, "Well, I was in the barn and I saw this ghost doing that." And I mean, maybe they weren't lying, maybe they were seeing real ghosts, but I was making it up.
You just wanted to be a part of the crowd.
Well, yeah, I was like, "Okay, if ghosts are cool, then I can see ghosts. Then I see ghosts too." So, here you go.
The ultimate question: are ghosts cool?
Ghosts groovy?
Are
I don't
ghosts-
know, man. Well, I mean, sometimes you hear about people who like have helpful ghosts. So like if a ghost was gonna like help out, then that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I do believe in. I don't think all spirits are evil, and that's a misconception that bothers me. Is that like every ghost is here to like haunt your family and take your life? I just think that if ghosts are real, I think that it's probably a very confusing existence, and they're probably like, if things are flying across the room or what have you, that they're probably just stumbling through purgatory trying to figure out what the heck is happening to them. I don't think that all of them are like angry.
No, yeah. I mean, I feel like if I believed in ghosts, I would think that it would be a very sad thing to be a ghost and kind of be stuck somewhere. And you probably, unless you were an evil person in life, you are probably still like your same boring self who's just kind of
Right.
trying to find your way to whatever you need to do.
Go,
So,
go towards the light, Janet.
yes.
Go.
Go go.
Well, I appreciate you letting me rant about something you don't really believe in.
I do enjoy like seeing the research and things like that. Like I definitely respect people who approach it from like kind of a research standpoint
Sure.
and kind of take that versus like I am not really down with people who like try to make money off of these kind of things because I
Oh,
feel
yeah,
like
no.
most just like exploiting people who are grieving is not cool. Going and hanging out in old hotels with some funky equipment is totally fine.
You're not into Long Island medium. That's not your jam.
No, no, ma'am.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. However, I am also a person who would probably hire like a medium or a psychic. I I'm just here to be exploited, honestly. If you tell me that you saw my grandpa, I'm just excited to be here. Like that's great. Take my money.
Well, I have a lot of experience in making up ghosts that I've seen, Midge. So you can just ask me, and I'll
I'll,
tell you what your grandpa thinks.
I'll Venmo you 20 and you can tell me what my grandpa has to say. Well, thank you all so much for listening today. Don't forget that if you want to see more content from us, you can follow us over on Instagram at Ghouls Night in Pod. And if you're looking for me, you can find me across all platforms at Midge Munster.
And you can find me at Penny Snark. And we should put up a poll on the Instagram and see out of our audience
Who believes?
what the percentage is of believers and non-believers.
Yes, I definitely think that I would like to see what that looks like. So be sure to head over to the Instagram after you listen to this episode and look for that poll in our stories, and we'll just see who is right, me or Penny.
The most scientific way to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Please do give us a rating or a review on your podcast app of choice. It does help us out. Subscribe wherever you like to listen. And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.